Welcome back. Week 23, another week, another practice exam. 5 more questions to help you pass that Network Plus exam as we go through. I moved offices, and I don't know if you realize this, but my camera, my green screen, is not doing a great job. It's screwing with my hoodie over here, but that's okay. You didn't come here to hear me whine about my hoodie and my camera. You came here to do practice exam questions. Let's see if we can't stump you this time. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. I think we're going to have some people that are upset with me on this one. I think I made these a little bit, maybe too challenging. Maybe. We'll see. Let's hit it. Let's get with question number 1, right? Network administrator notices that users are experiencing intermittent connectivity issues when accessing a web-based application hosted on a company server. Upon further investigation, they find the following. Which OSI layer is likely the root cause of the intermittent connectivity issues and why? So we got layers 1, 3, 4, and 7. You can always figure those out. Is that please do not throw sausage pizza away? Which layers are which? You know that one. And then there's a problem associated with it. We also have a little bit of log. Very detailed question. Very, very much a question that I would expect to be worth a lot of points on that Network Plus exam. So what do you think? What do you think on this one? We've got that, we've got that little bit of a log snippet. Looks like it's using some type of packet analyzer, I would assume, associated with that. There are hints in this. What do you think? What do you think on this one? If you need more time, of course, you can pause the video, but we're going to tackle this one. We're going to answer this one. Get those last-minute guesses in there, though. Network administrator notices that the users are experiencing intermittent connectivity issues when accessing a web-based application hosted on a company server. So we know it's a web-based application, not a web page. That's always important. And then upon further investigation, they found the following. Which layer of the OSI layer, which OSI layer is likely the root cause of the intermittent connectivity issues and why? When I'm faced with this type of question, I like to read the answers first. And there's a reason. Because the answers are going to be my possible solutions. I don't need to find the most correct answer. I just need to find hints associated with it, right? And so I don't want to be looking at layer 2 as a possible problem when layer 2 isn't even a possible answer. And so we need to take it from that approach, right? And so if we see here layer 1, possible cable degradation causing signal loss, then we can look through and see if there's any type of cable loss, right? Layer 3, misconfigured IP addressing. Layer 4, TCP handshake problems. And layer 7, faulty configuration problems. All right, so let's start with layer 1. Possible cable degradation causing signal loss. If we look at Ethernet 2, right? That Ethernet 2 right there, we see a source and we see a destination, but there's nothing showing any type of error here. So I feel like we can get rid of that one as a possible answer. Then we have layer 3, misconfigured IP addressing or routing issues. Are the proper source and destination IPs present? That's really what we're looking for here, because it's saying that the misconfigured IP addressing or routing issues. And so we can look at Internet Protocol version number 4. We see a source 192.168.1.10, destination 192.168.1.20. Should those be able to connect with each other? I would say yes. I don't see an issue with those two communicating with each other, which leaves us to layer 4 and layer 7 as our probable culprits. So I'll give you a minute on this one. If you guess layers 1 or 3 of those are incorrect, it's going to be layer 4 or layer 7, so C or D. I'll give you a second to figure that one out, and then we're going to dive into it. All right, so let's tackle this, right? Layer 4, TCP handshake problem resulting in drop connections. We can see the TCP, the Transmission Control Protocol, right there. We see source port 443, destination port 51514. There's no problems with this, right? There's no issues with this whatsoever. We see sequence number 1, acknowledges 1, length 1448, and then flags send ACK, right? But where's the acknowledgement back, right? Where's the ACK associated with that? You see what I'm saying? And so that is a possible problem. And then layer 7, right? Faulty configuration leads to web access errors. But we're not seeing that, because if you read the question, right here it says we're seeing intermittent connectivity issues, which means it is connecting. There is a connection. If it's connecting, then why would there be a configuration error within the site, right? And so by missing that ACK, by missing that ACK. That's the problem. That's where we're seeing the issue, right? So we see send. We should have send, right? Send to a three-way handshake. Then we should see send ACK, which is what we see, but we don't see an acknowledgement associated with that. And that's where our problem's going to be. That's going to be the problem here. And so the answer is going to be C. I hope that makes sense, right? Remember those three-way handshakes. All right, let's get over to question number 2. Technician sets up IP cameras in a remote area where running separate power lines isn't feasible. They tested PoE-enabled switch, but found that only some cameras received power. After inspecting the switch, they found the following configuration. What is most likely cause of the issue, and how should the technician resolve it? And we have this little graph here. So I'll give you a few seconds to figure out this one as we go through. We can see based on this that we have camera 1 and camera 3 appear to be active, but cameras 2 and 4 seem to have a fault. What do you think on this one? What do you think? Now, if you need more time, of course, you can pause the video. This one's similar to the last one. I'm going to go in order and then double check what's going on. So let's start with A. The switch does not support IEEE 802.3 AF standards. Yeah, it does, because it's powering 2 cameras. We see FA01 and 3 are both active. So that can't be the case, because if that wasn't the case, then we would have nothing, right? B, faulty Ethernet cables for the affected cameras replace the cables. That could, in fact, be a possibility. We could see where we have faulty cables on 2 and 4, and that's why we're not getting any power, right? Because PoE, power over Ethernet, that could be an issue. Or it could be that they're using the wrong type of cable. That is definitely a consideration we have to keep in mind. So let's keep that one on the back burner. And then there's C. The cameras exceed the switch's power budget. Upgrade to a switch with a higher PoE wattage. If that's the case, again, another great answer. So C is something that we should be aware of as well. And then D, incorrect port configurations, manually enabled PoE on the affected ports. Highly unlikely. Highly unlikely that that's an issue. And the reason I say that is because we have the ports associated with it. And usually you're not setting up with one port, you're setting it for multiple, especially when it's associated with cameras like this. Highly unlikely that D is the culprit on this one. So it's really between B and C. I'm going to let you take a second to think about this. What do you think about this, Ren? B or C? I'll give you about 5 seconds as we analyze this. All right, I feel like that's enough time. If you said B, faulty Ethernet cables affecting the cameras replace the cables, unlikely. Unlikely. Why? Because it would result in a disconnected status if it was bad, not a fault. So we'd see disconnected, not a fault. Assuming that. And it's more likely that when we have a fault, there's a problem with the actual cable, but it's still providing power. But not on 2. If it was just 1, that would be more likely. But with 2, 50% of our items, then that's not likely. So the most logical assumption is that the cameras exceed the switch power's budget. We need to upgrade the switch to a higher power over Ethernet wattage, because our power should be at 15.4 across the board for each camera. We're not seeing that. We're only seeing it on 1 and 3, which makes me say that, hey, most more likely position is that we're missing power. We don't have a proper power budget associated with it. The other thing is, when it comes to those cables, right? Usually, and you have to think with this from a logical standpoint, we're usually using the same cables across everything. It's not a one-off, right? Maybe if they had said something in the question like we just replaced a cable, then that could be the issue, right? But the way it's written, no. I think the only one to be there is going to be C. It's going to be C. All right, question number 3. Cloud engineer configures a load balancer to distribute traffic among 3 application servers. However, users report being directed to the same server, resulting in performance segregation. Here's the current load balancer configuration. What is the most likely cause of the performance issue, and how can it be mitigated? What do we think on this one? We see a round-robin algorithm. We see our health check is enabled, our sticky sessions are enabled, and our session timeout is 3,600 seconds. And so we got some important clues there. I'm going to give you a second on this one. So again, it's another troubleshooting one. Anytime we have a troubleshooting one, I'm reading the answers. More in detail than I would normally. Normally I tell students, read the question, read the answers, read what the question's really asking you, and then answer the question. When it comes to these troubleshooting ones, though, I take a different approach. I really do. I take the approach of let's find out what it's saying and then check to see if it's even reasonable associated with it. So let's start with A. Of course, if you need more time, you can always pause that video. So health checks are misconfigured, adjust the HTTP parameters. No. Health checks, they ensure the servers are operational. That's what a health check does. But they don't explain the uneven distribution that we're seeing. Because remember, if you read through the question, we have 3 application servers, and we're seeing them all going to the same one. So that could be an issue, right? Or I should say the health checks aren't the issue. That's not something that health checks are doing. B, sticky sessions for users to the same same server, disable session persistence. Possible in that one. C, the round robin algorithm is inefficient. Switch to least connections. If we switch to least connections, would it have the same effect? Is the round robin algorithm inefficient in this type of thing? Because we're seeing that the servers, the traffic is all going to the same server. Maybe on that one. D, session timeout is too short. Increase the timeout to reduce reallocation. I don't think the session timeout is too short. 3,600 seconds is more than adequate for a session timeout. So I wouldn't suggest that one. So it's really between B and C on this one. I'll give you about 5 seconds just in case you answered A or D. B and C are going to be our 2 upfront ones. What do you think? What do you think on this one? Well, if you said B, sticky sessions force the users to the same server, disable session persistence, you would be correct. Why? Well, when we have sticky sessions, right, they override that round robin algorithm. That's why all the traffic's going to one server rather than hitting boom, boom, boom in order. And so that's why we're seeing that degradation or that movement to all of our sessions going to one server rather than actually doing the round robin because we're doing sticky sessions. And so that's an issue. So we would want to get rid of that. That means B is going to be our correct answer on that one. Hope you were able to keep up with that one. All right, let's move on. Question number 4. Remote worker reports they cannot connect to a corporate network via RDP. The network administrator reviews the remote desktop gateway server logs and finds the following entry. What is the most likely cause of the issue, and what corrective action should the administrator take? We see gateway authentication failure. We can see a client IP address, and then we see an error code, SecE login denied. SecE login denied. Let's try and answer this one. And again, it's another troubleshooting one. These questions are all designed around making you think about that perspective, right? Critical thinking as we go through. Definitely all these questions are on the harder side. I think I purposely made these a little bit more difficult this week. Last week I feel like we had some pretty easy ones. This one, not so much. But what do you think? What do you think on this one? Of course, you can pause the video if you need more time. We're going to answer this one. Let's start with A. Incorrect gateway credentials. Reset the user's password. Possible. We do see that login denied. Definitely something, and we see the authentication fail. So I would say A is a possible. B, firewall blocking RDP traffic, open TCP port on 3389 of the firewall. We're not seeing anything related to the firewall. There's nothing on here suggesting that there's a firewall issue. Matter of fact, not even the question indicates a firewall. So I'm going to throw that one out. Expired SSL certificate. Renew and reapply the certificate on the gateway. SSL certificate on a remote desktop? I don't think so. I don't see that being the issue on this one, especially when it's talking about the certificate itself. And we're not seeing any indication of it. There's nothing in the logs supporting that, right? And so I would throw that one out as well. NAT configuration, network address translation misconfiguration, verify public IP mapping. And we see the public IP address, right? Right there, 203.0.113.10. That is a possibility. So it's really between A and D on this one. I'll give you a second to figure out which one you like better, just in case you answered B or C. It's between A and D. What do you think? What do you think on this one? I feel like you've had enough time. If you guessed A, incorrect gateway credentials, you would be 100% correct. Why? It tells us right there, login denied, authentication failure, right? And those go with the user's passwords. It goes with the user's credentials. And so that kind of identifies it. There's nothing in here to suggest that there's a network address translation configuration. Matter of fact, it even says that the login was denied, not a failure in the networking, not a failure in the IP address. Literally, they got denied. And so that's going to be our answer. It's going to be A. All right, last question for today. A company implements a BYOD policy, allowing employees to access corporate resources via personal devices. Shortly after, the IT department notices unusual traffic from unauthorized devices on the network. The administrator examines the logs from the MDM system. What is the primary challenge with the current BYOD implementation, and how should it be addressed? How should it be addressed? And we've got a little bit of logs here. We see employee device 01, active compliant, internal. Employee device number 2 is active non-compliant but restricted. And then guest device 1, active unknown, unrestricted. So what's our problem with this one? I'll give you about 10 seconds as I talk away into the thing. Remember, as you're answering these questions, if you're unsure, you can always flag it, right? But we do not want to spend more than 45 seconds on a question. We really don't want to spend more than 30 seconds if we can, even on these harder ones. So you got to read it, you got to answer it, and move on. You cannot spend a lot of time on these questions. We want to flag them because at the end of our PBQs, right? Because we have those PBQs worth a lot of points. Then we can come back and spend more time on it if we feel the need to, right? But we don't want to spend a lot of time on here. We do not want to spend 5 minutes looking at these. So you got to be quick. You got to be on target when it comes to this stuff. You cannot be sitting here waiting or trying to read through it for 5 minutes. You're not going to pass your exams that way. All right, let's answer this one. If you need more time, go ahead and pause that video. What is the primary challenge with the current BYOD implementation, and how should it be addressed? We're going to take the same approach as before, right? A, insufficient device compliance checks, enforce stricter mobile device management policies. I don't think so. I don't feel like that's a thing. We're finding the problems. It says it right there, right? B, lack of network segmentation, implement VLANs for guest devices. I mean, that's a possible one. We have a guest device on there. We see that the compliance is unknown. We see that it's an unrestricted connection. Maybe we should segment it out. That's a possible. C, weak password policies, mandate multi-factor authentication for all users. Possible on this one. It's definitely there, but I don't see anybody having access to it, or not having. I should say I don't see anybody having a problem accessing it. And if we read the question, we see that we have unauthorized devices on the network. Could multi-factor authentication fix the network devices? Could it fix the unauthorized devices? Another good one. I like this one too. I really do. I think C is a decent one to go. I don't know about the weak password policies, but I do like the multi-factor authentication, if that makes sense. And so C, possible. D, unauthorized access. Deploy NAC to restrict unregistered devices. What do you think about this one? Network access control, of course, is NAC. All right, so we've got what did we say? 3 good ones, B, C, and D. Let's knock off one of these. Let's get rid of B. Lack of network segmentation. Implement VLANs. I feel like that's a good one to get rid of. So it really comes between C and D. C and D are going to be our 2 front runners on this one. What do you think? Why did I get rid of B? Why did I get rid of B? Well, because, believe it or not, we don't need network segmentation. Why? Because they're all BYOD. When you use network segmentation to segment the BYOD devices away from other devices, in this case, it's BYOD. It's bring your own device. So there's no reason to segment BYOD devices from other BYOD devices. It doesn't make sense. And so we get rid of that one. That's why. All right. So C and D, I'm assuming you made your guess here while I was talking. So let's tackle this one. If you answered C, weak password policy, mandate multi-factor authentication for all users, you would be incorrect. I'm sorry. Why? Unauthorized access. That's our problem, right? So we have a guest device here. We have a guest device that's active, unknown, unrestricted connection. Unrestricted. That means there's no problems with it. That means they have access to everything. Even our employee device number 1 is an active connection. It's compliant, and it has an internal connection. We have unrestricted connection. That is a major issue. That has more power than our compliant devices. And so there's a problem there, right? So we need to deploy network access controls to prevent unauthorized devices from accessing our network. That's our goal here, right? And the device is unregistered, right? That's a problem. Okay. So D is going to be a correct answer on this one. I hope you found this educational. How many did you get right or wrong? How many did you get right? Was this a little bit more difficult than normal? Probably. I'd like to hear about it. So post it below. We'll see you next time. I'm Dr. K.